House Speaker Mike Johnson is rushing up against another deadline to keep the lights on. Congress must reach a funding deal by Friday to avoid a partial shutdown. Yep, another partial shutdown. And while House Republicans struggle to perform just their basic duties, they're continuing to distract with sideshows. On Wednesday, the House Oversight Committee will hold a public hearing in a baseless quest to, guess what, impeach President Biden. The president's son, Hunter Biden, has rejected an invitation by Republicans to testify, with his lawyers blasting the stunt as a, quote, circus act. Joining us now, Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, who serves as the U.S. Virgin Island representative. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's so good to see you,
Congresswoman. It is so good to see you. And I got to say, I think our viewers would be forgiven if they have lost track of which potential shutdown this one is. So can you just walk us through, right? Just as they would be forgiven if they could not name the Speaker of the House, given the amount of turnover that we have seen there. Can you walk us through what is at stake with this looming deadline?
Well, great. So remember, we were finally able to pass a partial appropriations bill, which funds the government through next year for some agencies. What's still left on the table are the ones that are the most vexing. That's the Department of Defense and in particular Department of Homeland Security. So within those, we're running up against issues of the border, immigration, as well as funding for Ukraine and the Middle East, et cetera. So those are the things that I think Mike Johnson is unwilling to take a position that he knows will potentially oust him with his party. And so we may have, if this sounds crazy, a continuing resolution for the entire year to keep it going until we get through the next election, which is just absolutely unheard of.
You have, specifically, as you just raised, this idea that the Hills reported on, where House Republicans are pushing to zero out Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas' salary to prohibit funding for the CBP One app, which the Biden administration has used to parole migrants into the country and to defund memos limiting ICE and Customs and Border Protection enforcement operations. So you have this sort of convergence of their efforts to impeach Mayorkas. You have this idea now we're going to zero out his salary. There's also talk about getting rid of TSA.
Right.
Crazy. It is. So I just don't even understand how they're thinking. What are you hearing inside the chamber? Okay, so there's one thing to have the bubble out here where there's noise on the street one way, but inside the chamber, is that a serious effort and movement, you think, coming on the right, or is there fracture within that?
I think there is fracture within the Republican caucus as well. You know, of course, Democrats are always reminding them we do have a bipartisan border bill that is sitting and available for us, that the president was able to work out with one of the most conservative senators, right? But we do have this discussion within each one of these legislations and these appropriations. Republicans at the super far right, you know which ones they are, I don't even want to say their names, have tried to zero out secretaries' salaries. So this is not anything new, and usually it fails when it's brought as an amendment to the floor. But we understand that this is, of course, the rallying cry. The Department of Homeland Security is the rallying cry that they're going to be using in this next election, which is why we're seeing this continued fight with this discussion. I mean, they are having discussions that they want funding for a border wall. We must have the wall.
Right.
And until we get the
was
funding,
going to pay for
it.
Well, yes.
But we'll defund TSA.
We'll defund TSA.
And Homeland Security.
But we want a wall.
We want a wall.
I mean, when they are talking about hollowing out DHS, and I mean, to be clear, it is funding for DHS and the Pentagon that are some of the most contentious points yet in this whole conversation. And both of those are they're on the chopping block for this Friday. Funding will run out on the 22nd.
Do you know how crazy that sounds?
Yes.
That the Republicans want to zero out Department of Defense, right? It's not the Democrats from the far reaches of California that are requesting this. This is the Republican Party requesting this.
What is the real-life implication of a delay in funding for the Department of Homeland Security or the Pentagon for the American people?
Catastrophic if we were to have a shutdown in this. This relates to not just ICE and the border. We're always talking about the border, but it relates to our immigrations and customs throughout everyone coming into this country. It deals with the security of this country. Remember, Homeland Security was created after after September 11th, right? In 2001 to protect the homeland from enemies. And so zeroing this out will really put us at a tenuous position at the same time that the FBI director, Chris Wray, has said that the war in the Middle East has increased terrorist activity against this country as well.
Congressman, you're talking about threats from outside the homeland. There are also threats in the homeland. Again, I'm not going to play more Donald Trump sound, but I thought it was notable in his speech just yesterday that he's referring to January 6 defendants as hostages, potentially creating a permission structure in the future for political violence. When he makes these remarks, it's easy for some folks to dust them off. It is not easy for any of us because we have bear witness to what happens when Donald Trump calls for that type of violence and then also says that the folks who committed those acts of violence are, quote, hostages.
Well, let's think about this, that it's not just threats against us as members of Congress or threats against a certification of election. What if judges go against what Donald Trump desires? Is he going to remove judges? Is he going to remove you, the media, when you're not reporting as he wishes? Is he going to shut that down? And is he going to incite individuals to do that? Today for me, tomorrow for you. And we all have to be concerned with what the rhetoric is that is not just rhetoric, it's reality. What he says, he believes, and he has acted on in the past.
The other thing that we've been talking about this morning with the former president is his use of words and language that, some want to play off as, oh, that's not what he meant.
Right.
As my mama said, and I'll keep saying this because mama was right, he's a grown man, all right? And so presumably at 78 years old, he should know how to say what he means and mean what he says, right?
Right.
How do members on the heels of what happened on January 6th, and they know how those words incited the behavior of a lot of citizens to storm the Capitol, when they hear him out there saying things like a bloodbath and using those terms, what happens inside that building? What are they thinking in that moment? Oh, here we go again. We're getting set up. Or, the Republicans are like, he's just being Trump.
Well, I think some of them think he's just being Trump. But I think there's quite a number of them who are fearful for themselves. And that's why, in fact, they support him full-throated the way they do, because they want to be on his good side when his people come after them. And then there are those of us who say this man is indeed a threat to our democracy. I think it's very telling that we have now almost all of the former vice presidents saying that they would not endorse Trump. Have we heard yet from Quayle? But other than Quayle, who advised, he advised Pence not to do his duty and to not follow Trump. All of them who have been up close and personal with this former president have said, this man is a danger to our democracy.
Well, there are a lot of dangers out there. You're in the throes of that and trying to move the country forward.
We need to keep moving forward.
We appreciate you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, thank you so much for being with us.
If it makes you feel any better, I have already put evac on alert. He's ready to go if it comes to that. General, I can assure you.
Hey, General, let me into the war room to see you, so I had to hack my way onto this frequency.
This better be critical, Willie.
Sir, come on, when is it not, please? Okay, couple of things. I'm running low on the dough. I was thinking about taking a couple of months sick leave, maybe starting today. And, oh yeah. I intercepted a transmission from Megatron.
Then send it through.
Yes, sir, right away, sir. And so I was so damn caught on the other stuff.
This is your last warning, insects. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world, and we will defeat them here.
The Megatron.
Ambush was just a diversion. Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We are facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General! General! Evac immediately, General! Evac immediately!